Once upon a time, a girl named Felicity and a boy named Peter bought an abandoned 1830s farmhouse. 3 sides of the farmhouse had recently been re-sided and repainted, but this side, which is the only side of the house that you cannot see at all driving past on the road, had not been updated. So it has now. They've started working on this. We were here on Wednesday and they had just started down here at the very lower bottom. So they have now done quite a lot of work. There's still a few bits left to be done. The single biggest change is the extension over here. That is so much better. If you were around for, gosh, maybe a month or so ago, I was complaining about the fact that I just don't like the back of view of the house because you can tell that this extension is new. And you can tell because they didn't bother to do anything to make it look remotely like the rest of the house. So this is already looking a lot better, and I'm hoping that when it's painted, it will look even better still. One of the other things that Dewey told us is that these holes, there were a couple of sets of boards that had holes at regular intervals all the way through, completely round holes. And that is because they were used to blow the insulation into the floors. So they would drill a hole, blow the insulation in, and then they plugged them. That's why these boards on both sides here, all the way across, they had to be replaced because they had holes in them. And then that one up there on that side for the second floor has been replaced, and the one over here yet needs to be done. So this is really, really cool to see such an improvement in the last, well, we were here Wednesday and it's now Saturday, so Thursday, Friday. I mean, just 2 days. Pretty dang cool. So this is the south side. You can see they've done a line up there. Those also had holes in them. That is the level of the attic roof. So that's again another situation where they blew in insulation, and down here as well. And then going around to the front, which you can see from the road, this is the east side. Oh, also there was a giant hole up there in the side that wildlife was going in and out of our attic, so that is now sealed up. And you can see they've also redone the siding here. They've had to redo the siding where they pulled the porch off, the old porch roof off, so that is all being redone. And then that's been redone. You can see they've started working on this side as well. Again, everywhere they pulled the porch roof off has to be redone. And then on both sides, actually, of where the kitchen extension hits the house, all of that siding has to be redone. Gosh, it's looking good. So here's a massive change. This is the remains of the barn. There's still some work to do, but you can actually walk around all the way in here now, and the big piles of timber are gone, which is quite fantastic. There's still a lot of miscellaneous bits and pieces, which unfortunately I think are going to have to be gone through and picked up by hand and not the skid loader, which does not sound like much fun. But it is really nice to be able to see that the place is walk-around-able, albeit very carefully. And they were able to do a little bit of a burn. That's what this pile is here. So we did burn some of the timber on site so that we don't have as much going into the bin. Part of the barn siding, and I really wish we could keep it, and the beams behind it. The plan actually was to keep the beams behind it and repurpose them into raised beds, which would have been lovely, but it looks like there are still some active carpenter ant colonies in here, and of course we don't want that anywhere near our mostly wooden house, especially since the new wooden siding is going on. So unfortunately these are all going to have to be chucked. It's a risk that we can't take, which is unfortunate, but part of the way it goes. The only other update I have for you all today, which you may have noticed already, is that the gutters are finished. I think there's a couple of like small tweaky things that need to be done, but for the most part, the gutters are on and in the right location. One of the things about doing the rehab loan is that you have to chunk out the projects over the course of your rehab so that the bank knows when to pay your contractors. And so one of the projects that we're working on getting finished is the barn, which we have seen today, and the gutters and the stove pad, which you guys saw last week. And so that's one of the things. When those three things are done, we call the bank and we say, hey, those are done. The bank sends the appraiser out to look at them and make sure they're done, and then James gets paid for that work. So it's a little clunky. If you have ever done like a construction or your own rehab or whatever, it's a little clunky, but that's how they want to make sure that the project stays on track and they're not releasing too much money ahead of the work being done. So we are really looking forward to telling the bank later this week that they can come out and look at those three things and release the funds, and that'll be one less check item on the checklist that needs to be checked. That's what I'm trying to say. So apologies that there wasn't a whole lot more going on. There's been a lot of behind the scenes stuff going on in the last several days, and a lot of things that have been started, just not a lot that I can show you. It took quite a while to get the barn cleared out, as you can imagine, and then the gutters also took a little bit of time. So as we are starting to work on the inside of the house on days when it's not nice weather and we can't do things like the siding and things like that, we're starting increasingly to play this what's this mystery game. And we're playing this game because we don't know anything about the history of the house, we don't know anything about the owners of the house, we don't have any idea when it was renovated or updated. And so every time we start working on a project or continue a project that involves the walls or the floor or the ceiling, Peter and I are always interested in what that can tell us about the date that things were updated or constructed. And so one of the things that has happened since we were inside last is that the baseboard heaters have been taken off the walls in the main room. And on the 26th of October, while we were waiting for James to arrive so we could discuss some of the siding updates with him, Dewey, who's one of his team members, was telling us about some interesting discoveries that he made when he took the baseboard heaters off of the wall in what we're calling the sitting room, which is the room where we've installed the wood stove. So they've taken off the heaters now, and interestingly we have this tongue and groove board underneath here, but it only goes up to this point. We're in the sitting room, so this is sheetrock. So they put in the baseboard heat, and then they put in the sheetrock around the baseboard heat, and then right here where the dividing line hits, up here is lath and plaster. So the question is, what is under? I'm kind of curious and a little bit terrified to know if it's lath and plaster as well under the sheetrock, or if there's something else that's there. I'm almost wondering if this was meant to be wainscoting. This is what's on the underneath. You can see it there too. This is what's underneath the sheetrock. So this is the unpainted version. This wall also, like this is one of the layers that we had to dig through to get to the cavity where we could put new outlets in the kitchen. So if you watched the video a few weeks ago, we were trying to figure out what wall stuff was in the kitchen. This is one of the layers, one of the 3 wall layers in the kitchen as well. So at some point, somebody spent a lot of time and money redoing a significant portion of the house in this style. It is tongue and groove. You can see it here. I don't know. I'm very curious to know, again, like what decades this was used in. That would help us maybe kind of date when this was last redone. And also then it could tell us maybe when the heating system went in. The other thing that we've been doing as we're kind of waiting around, this green color, which I had not noticed in this room specifically, there's this like molding that goes all the way through the room, and it's because it caps the sheetrock. But this is the only room that has this kind of sheet of molding through the room. But this green shows up in a couple of different places. That green is one of the layers that's here. This is the door jamb for the door going upstairs, and that same green is here. So somebody did this pale, that pale green was definitely an accent color that was done throughout. And here again you can see where the walls aren't lath and plaster, our guess is that they're mostly this, which is wood. It just feels like really cheap fake wood. I don't know what that's about. So anyway, and then the other interesting thing color wise, if we come over here, I think I've mentioned this before. As far as we know, this is the only room in the house that has this tongue and groove wall paneling going this way. And if you look down, the extension went here, and I was sure I had seen this blue before, and I have. The blue actually runs all the way through. You can see here on the jamb, you can see here on the jamb, you can see here on the jamb, and it's the same blue as the furniture that we're keeping in the basement. So this, and it's only one layer, right? There's the wood, there's the blue, and there's the white. So what we're wondering now, because the floor is different, right? So this is the end of the linoleum coming in from the kitchen. That same blue is the blue of the stairs going down. So yeah, somebody was in a real blue theme when they redid this kitchen, and they had the walls painted that lovely blue. And then this obviously has been replaced. And then if you look here on the floor, that is what you would do if you were finishing out a threshold of some kind, right? Now this is right underneath the support beam that runs through the middle of the house. And so one of the questions we now have is, was this originally the exterior wall and then they built on this side, or why, why? The question is, why is this one particular wall so different from the rest? And we may never know. Or we may take Dottie up on her suggestion to have a architectural historian come out and see what they could tell us, which honestly at this point would be ridiculously helpful. We may look into that. So that's all the footage that I have for you today. The last thing that I want to leave you with is both a sadness and an excitement. The sadness is that we found out that our neighbors across the road are moving. Our wonderful, beautiful, helpful, kind neighbors who took the drum set from our living room are moving. And so that is incredibly sad. We've really enjoyed the experiences we've had with them thus far, and we're really looking forward to having them as neighbors. The happy part of this is that because they're moving, they're getting rid of a lot of stuff. And so the first night that we found out they were moving, we were offered their canning jar collection, which you can see here in all of its gloriousness. And I am ridiculously excited about this. Not because I want a can, because I don't, but I definitely want those jars for freeze-dried foods, for dehydrated foods, and just to have jars on hand instead of plastic Tupperware is amazing. So more to come on this in the next video, because we've had some more interactions with them since this was filmed. But I did want to let you know that there is going to be some fun finds coming in the next video. So thank you as always so much for hanging out with me, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video. Bye for now.